Well, hello and welcome to Frame.io Live. My name is Ryan, and today I am going to be taking you through Get to Know Frame.io version 4. Over the next 30 to 45 minutes or so, we are going to do a complete end-to-end overview of everything Frame.io v4. We're going to chat a little bit about account settings, user roles, go through workspaces and projects, talk about uploading and moving around content. Of course, we'll review commenting and annotating, talk a little bit about metadata and collections, and then some of the ways that you could share out externally. I know we have a packed agenda. However, this is a live session. I want to make sure that you can get the most out of today's session and I can answer any questions that you have as you're getting started leveraging Frame.io. This is certainly a more introductory type session, especially for those that are either brand new to Frame or brand new to Frame.io version 4. A couple of things as we go along today. Like I said, we are completely live, so feel free to use that comment section to ask any questions. I will also be using that comment section to drop some articles from our knowledge base for later reference. We will be recording today's session, so if you signed up today, you will be receiving a link so that way you can review it at a later date. Additionally, please ask questions. Like I said, I want to make sure that we can address anything that you all have. But hopping in, if you're familiar with Frame, I would like to highlight that the core functionality of Frame.io is the same whether you just upgraded into a version 4 account. Of course, you can upgrade, comment, and annotate and share assets, but with a whole bunch of brand new functionality and features, you will be able to take your creative process really to the next level. So we're completely web-based, but we also have an iPhone and an iPad app and an integrated panel coming soon for Premiere and later in the year for After Effects. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You're welcome to follow along with me here. I'm just under app.frame.io, which is where you're able to access your instance of Frame. What you're looking at here on your main page, I have a little bit of a structure built out. You can customize and build out a structure based on your specific workflow. But starting up here in the top left corner is where workspaces exist. Workspaces are the highest level of organization that exists within your account. Within each workspace are projects. So this structure enables you to stay organized and have a snapshot of every project within the workspace right here on this home screen. Before we go further, I did want to discuss user roles. This will certainly inform how you interact with your content, how you can also structure and build out your account. But starting with users, I am an account owner, so I have full access across every single workspace, all projects, all content. I can also adjust all of the global settings, which we'll hop into in just a moment. There's typically only one account owner. However, you can add as many content admins as you would like. These users have the ability to have access across all workspaces, projects, and content, but they differ from the account owner in that they can't actually make global changes to account settings, but rather control the users within each project and also create new projects within each workspace. And then there's members. So members have general access to account information with the ability to collaborate within the workspace or projects that they are assigned to. Over here on the right-hand side, directly next to where your workspace is listed, that's where you're able to add in specific members into these spaces. You can then give users a range of different member roles. A user can be full access, edit and share, edit, comment only, or view only. Really depends on exactly what you need these users to do, but all of these users will occupy a license. So every single one of these people will take up a seat. However, any reviewer or somebody who reviews a link that had been shared with them, those users never actually occupy a seat. They're simply just viewing content that you've shared on externally. So I'm going to drop in the chat now an article that just outlines user roles and permissions for your reference. I highly recommend taking a look at this. It just goes a little bit more in depth to these user specific roles. Okay. But let's just go ahead and assume that I'm working as the account owner. I'm logging in for the very first time. I'm now here. There are a couple of settings that I wanted to draw your attention to, including how you can actually manage your content and organize your space, but also welcome in users. So let's start there. I'm going to go down into the bottom right hand, or excuse me, the bottom left hand corner. You can see here where it says RA. That just stands for Orion's account. You may have various accounts that you can access, meaning that you could have access to Ryan's account plus a secondary or third account. Whichever account you're clicked into, that's where all those actions will occur. Those account spaces will stay separate. You can change the theme from light or dark or have that match your system. But let's go ahead and hop into our settings here. I would recommend that all of your users adjust their profile up here. This will be their name and their email address, including a photo. Anything that's added here will also sync up with any comments that users leave associated with an asset. They can change their email address and their password here too. Notification. This is specific for each individual user. So I'm just here under these account settings for notifications. You can adjust email notification digests by how frequently you want to receive emails from Frame. We find that there's a lot of actions that occur within Frame.io, a lot of commenting, annotating, and sharing. So as opposed to receiving an email anytime actions occur, you can select a period by which you'll get a digest of a summary of actions that occur within your account. Do you want that every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes, hourly, daily, or never? You can also get a little bit more specific with the types of notifications that you receive. You can see here that there's an option to select either in-app, email, or via push notification. You can receive comments or, you can receive notifications anytime comments occur, either general comments, comment replies, or app mentions. For assets as well, you can receive in-app, email, or push notifications when content is uploaded. Other uploads occur, status changes, or there's content that's assigned to you. This is all specific, again, based on the individual user. Usage. This is where you can get an overall snapshot of everything that is within your account, the number of members, reviewers, storage, projects, and workspaces. Depending on your account type, you can select your account plan or your billing details. For our enterprise folks out there, that's all managed at the enterprise level by folks like myself as part of your account team. Any other plans, though, you can adjust your plan or your billing type here. Users. These three tabs here, users, workspaces, and projects. If you are going to be a content admin or an account owner, you might spend a good amount of time here going through these settings specifically. Under this users tab, for existing users, you can see I have a couple folks in here. By clicking on these users, I could see which workspaces they're a part of. I also can change the role of these users to be a content admin or a member. And a benefit of this tab here is I can also see the last active date. So you can see my account. I was just active 30 minutes ago. My colleague Jacob hasn't been active in 8 days, but my colleague Luke hasn't been active in a month. So this could also inform if I want to either add in additional users or remove users from my account as well. Adding users is quite simple. I can just go up here to the top right corner and click new user. From here, I then can add in a member via their email address. Those users will then receive an email indicating that I have invited them into my account. So let's go ahead and do Jane Smith. I'm just going to click tab to add another user, and let's do John Doe. I have the option to add in a message as well. So I'm inviting you into this specific Frame.io workspace. Let's go ahead and add in those users. You can see that they're pending because we haven't quite added them in yet. I'll show you then where you can allocate those users. I went through those member roles earlier. I'll show you that in just a bit. But continuing down with our settings, workspaces. If you're an enterprise customer, you can create as many workspaces as you would like. The benefit here being you could create a workspace based on your specific workflow. Maybe you work with external clients and you want to create a workspace just for a client to have access to. Really, sky's the limit. We call that multi-workspace management. You can see here that I already have 2 existing workspaces where then I could put projects within. Let's create a new workspace together and we could create a new project in just a moment. So I'm going to create a new workspace here. Let's say that we're going to be working on a summer campaign. I'm based in New York. There's some snow on the ground, so I'm dreaming of some warmer days here. We're working on some projects for summertime. But then I can see this summer campaign will sync on my homepage where then I can add in additional projects. For my pre-existing workspaces, by clicking on this workspace, for example, marketing, I can see when it was created, how much storage is being occupied, but I can also manage the users within that space and also get a snapshot of all the projects that exist within that workspace. Just another location to get a high level overview of your account. I can also see a list of all of the projects and I can even organize them based on project access or storage. So let's say I want to see some content that's occupying a lot of storage but hasn't been updated in a while. This project here, Ryan's demo content, it's taken up about a gig and a half, and I haven't used it for 3 months. So that could be a good way to determine if you need to actually offload some content off of Frame.io. Branding. This might be specific depending on your account type, but you can adjust what your account name and logo is. But you can set some default shares and color associated with anytime you share content out externally. Using my example for workspaces, let's say you have a client that you're working with, you know that you're always going to be sending review links to that client or a share link for review. You can adjust the logo, the header, the accent color, the background. So that way, every single time there is some specificity and some consistency to the content that you share with specific individuals. Again, I can upload an image and adjust this accent color or real background to match that of my custom branding. Yeah. Content security, especially if you're an enterprise customer, these settings will pertain to you. Share settings, actually, this is all account types. You can require a passphrase and a default link expiration date. If you're sharing content with the same stakeholders, you could just add a passphrase requiring that every time those assets are viewed within that link. Or you could also set a share expiration, especially if you have a tight timeline. Secure sharing. This pertains to our enterprise customers. This just means that it requires that a user signs into a Frame.io account before they could view any content that you have shared with them. This secure sharing, again, requires that there's a free account, but can just be leveraged for an additional security feature, requiring that that user signs into account so that way you can have a full audit trail of who has actually accessed your content. There's an additional setting here for authorized domains. So, for example, at adobe.com, do I only want users who have that domain to be able to access my content? You can apply that here. Similar to the requirement for passphrase or default link expiration, you can require secure share links on all assets, and you can create a default share access type. So that way, folks that are a part of your account, when they share externally, they know that they're only going to be sharing it via secure sharing. Watermark can also be applied to any internal or external assets. You could see that it can be required on internal assets here. That will actually burn it in once we upload content into the proxies. You can require this on shares. I would say that that is a more commonly used feature. It certainly depends on the project you're working on and what level of privacy you require. But let's go ahead and create a new watermark template here together. So we can create a new template. Let's call this one summer project. I can add in my own custom text. So let's say that this one has a project name, Project Sunshine. We can adjust the opacity and we can rotate this text as well if desired. I also have the option to add in a couple of text-based customizations, the name, email address of the user, IP address, date and time, and any custom text that you would like. I can adjust the text anywhere from small to huge. I can also adjust the color. Let's make this one blue. I can also have this text scroll. An additional feature here is you can add a secondary text block, so you can have multiple watermarks at the same time associated with the template. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And then I can add that watermark at the time of external sharing. Perfect. I saw that there's a couple additional folks that have joined today. Welcome. We're going through getting to know Frame.io version 4. I just went through the settings of the account. We're going to chat a little bit about projects and uploads next. Feel free to drop any questions you have in that comment section. Would make sure that I address those. Now that we've created a new workspace, my summer campaign, I can create a project within that workspace. Creating a new project just by clicking the plus button here will then reveal this page where I have a couple of different options of what type of project I want to create. There are a couple of templates here, casting on auditions, prop inventory, dailies. If you're brand new to Frame or brand new to V4, I would recommend leveraging one of these project templates, including some sample content. So you can see how metadata and collections can function within your Frame.io account. Of course, you can turn off this sample content if you don't want to see it. For enterprise folks out there, you also can make a project restricted. Let's just create a new blank project though, and we call this one casting photos. And we're going to add it into that specific workspace. I'm going to go back home just so we can go through these projects together. But you can see here that these projects are listed in thumbnail format, nestled underneath each individual workspace. Earlier, I know I was chatting a little bit about this Ryan's demo content project. I haven't actually accessed it in 3 months. I actually don't want to see it revealed here on my homepage. So I can mark this project as inactive, which will just hide it from this homepage directly. By clicking on these three dots next to this workspace, I can filter and see either all projects, including my inactive projects, or I could just see my current active. I can also go back to my inactive projects and I can make them active so they show up back again on my homepage. We want to see all or just active. This could be a great way to reorganize your content, especially if you need to hold on to assets within Frame, but you're currently not working on them. Users can be added at the workspace level. They also can be added at just the project level. So I know earlier when I went through the user roles specifically, you could see here that all of these users have access to every single project within this workspace. So this workspace that I created, my summer campaign, there's nobody in it yet. So I can invite in these users. Let's say I want John Doe and Jane Smith to be added into the specific space. They will not actually have access to either of these two workspaces unless I add them there. A benefit to the restricted projects as well that I showcased earlier is users can be added into a workspace. They'll automatically have access to every single project. But by creating a restricted project, I still have to re-add users into that project in order for them to view it. So just another way to stay organized and again, create some privacy within your space if you need to. So now that I have my casting photos project, I have a complete empty sandbox for me to be able to upload assets into Frame and begin working on some type of review and approval process here. There's a couple of different ways that I can upload content. The first, I could just drag and drop content from my desktop or another location on my computer directly into Frame. I could upload from the iOS or the iPad app. I also can leverage the Transfer app, which is an external app that you could use. You could set watch folders, especially if you're uploading a high volume of content. I would certainly recommend leveraging that Frame.io Transfer app. I can also just go up here to the top and click the plus button where I can upload an asset or a folder itself. Let's actually upload a folder directly from my desktop, this casting photos folder. It's going to maintain my folder structure. And I want to draw your attention here to the left-hand side where then I can see a list of all of the content that I've uploaded. So you can see here that I've uploaded this casting photos folder a couple of times over the past couple of weeks while leading this session. But from here, I then can see exactly when it was uploaded, and by clicking on it, it will also take me directly to that location within my account. I just got a question from Nico. What you're showing right now, is that only adjustable by the account owner? That was 1 minute ago. No, it's not, Nico. Specifically for workspaces and projects, as long as a user is a content admin, they also have the ability to create projects within that space. Members who have full access can also create new projects as well. Good question. Any additional questions that come through, please let me know. I know I just uploaded a couple of JPEGs here. You could see all of these casting photos, which now I can tag, annotate, or externally share. But if I was to upload a video file, there's always a couple of things that take place within Frame. So the original file is always imported and saved. You'll always have access to that original if you need to download it. But we also transcode and create lightweight web and mobile friendly proxy versions of your content. So you can play it back from anywhere you have access to Frame, especially if you're working on your mobile or maybe you're on set or on the go. All of those proxies can be accessed directly through Frame. We can certainly revisit this project at a later date, but I did just want to give you a tour of what you're looking at with a project that has some assets in it. I hope that at least uh, gets the appetite going for what it looks like to create a new project and start from scratch. I'm going to access my short edits project here under my marketing workspace where I have a little bit more of a robust build out so that way we can see what this review process looks like down the line. Over here on the left, this home button I've used a couple of times just to get right back to my home space. There is a search function here, and these are the notifications that we adjusted earlier. So that bell will give me a notification if I have selected those notifications within my space. And this upload section we just revisited. Here on the left-hand side, this panel will give me a list of all of my assets and the folders within. These collections we'll get to in just a minute, but collections will function kind of like smart folders. So you can capture a collection of assets within that project to all save to a specific location. And shares. This is any share that I have created or anything that I have added to a link to share out with anybody external to this account. Down at the bottom here is an option for C2C connections. That stands for camera to cloud connections. Camera to cloud connections is free. You can also sync up any device that is compatible with your Frame.io account, meaning the second that you call cut, assets will be auto uploaded into your Frame.io account. Really a wonderful feature that can also be connected to Adobe Lightroom. If you have any questions, you can find that within our knowledge base. Let's go back over to our assets here. Up at the top, I do have the ability to adjust the appearance, including the layout, the card size, aspect ratio, tiles. I can also flatten my folder so I can view all content at once. Fields pertain to metadata fields. This is where I'm able to add specific tags to assets associated with the project for organization at a later time. I'll revisit that in just a moment. I can also sort based on these metadata tags. Right now I have it sorted based on name, but I also can sort based on the end time, the file type, a rating-based system. Again, I can search within my direct project here for assets. And this is where I'm able to add in users exclusively at the project level. Nico, I know you were asking what was adjustable by the account owner. You can also add in additional users or members here and determine what level of access you want them to have. Anybody with full access does not have the ability to add in those users. They will need to be a content admin. I do want to draw your attention to the top right corner where there's a couple of different panel views. I could show you how this will show up. So I'm going to select this asset right here that I know we already have a couple of comments associated. You can see that there's an icon here, reveals that. By clicking on these panels, I can break out if I want to see my collections and my shares all at once, but I can take it a step deeper. I can break out a panel on this right-hand side where I can see my asset, or I can also see my asset with comments associated. I've seen this view used, especially when going through assets that already have comments associated with them, just to get a high-level overview of all the comments that are associated with each individual asset. Or if you're going through and you're trying to tag specific assets, you can then see them here directly within the project, but also just broken out larger. Any questions about these panel views, please let me know. In addition to being able to adjust how you view your content or sort your content, you also can move it around or create new folders. So for example, I have this untitled folder here. I can drag and drop content into that folder. I also can create a new folder. By selecting an asset and doing a two-finger click or a right-finger click, I also have the option to do a couple of different actions here, one of which is just downloading my content. Here's that original that I mentioned earlier. I can copy the asset URL, meaning that a user will need a sign in, but it will take them directly to this location within the project to view that content. I can copy, move, or duplicate assets. If I was to copy something, it wouldn't move the comments over, but if I was to move it, it would move the comments over. And duplicating will do just that. It will create a second version of this asset, but they will not live in tandem. Anything that occurs with one will not occur in the other. All right. Let's go ahead and open up this footage folder here. And I did want to showcase one of my favorite features just to help you stay a little bit organized as well. It's called version stacking. These two assets, you can see I'm just scrubbing between them. They're very similar. Let's say this is our edit 1 and this one's our edit 2. I can keep them together by dragging and dropping one asset over the next. And then it's going to give me a little V2 here, indicating that there are two assets associated with this version stack. I know that I've been on long email threads where there's some confusion as to which edit is actually the final edit. This version stacking feature can be a great way to eliminate some of that confusion. By opening up this asset, I then can go up here to the top and I can see either version. So I can click back and forth between them. So it keeps these two like assets together. But I also can compare them side by side. So you can see here that I'm clicking play and it's enabling me to watch them both in tandem. I also can click at this bar up at the top and it will reveal the comments associated with each asset, either right or left. If there was audio associated with this asset, I also would have the ability to play the audio and A/B test between one or two. So if you're doing a different voiceover or a different song, it could be a great way to just get an overview of which edits have been made. A benefit to this version stacking is you can share out an entire version stack. So let's say you wanted an external stakeholder to see both version 1 and version 2. I could share out this entire thing just by creating a share link here. And then that user has the ability to do what we just did to compare them side by side. Any questions, please let me know. I did want to actually open up this asset here within our player page and leave a couple of comments together just to showcase the commenting and annotating that exists within Frame. Again, any questions from the group, please keep them coming. There's a handful of different types of comments that you could leave within Frame, both for individuals that have access to your account and anybody who's just viewing these share links. You can leave just a single comment, which will sync up with the timeline. You can also leave a range-based comment indicating a period of time within that asset. You can @mention any internal users, so any of those member roles, so that way they get a notification that you're indicating a comment directly to them. You can create a hashtag, an anchored comment, and you also can attach a file to a comment. We'll go through and we'll do all of those together. Please let me know if you have any questions. This player page is rather intuitive, but just as a little tour here, there's a play pause option, a loop. You can adjust the playback speed or the audio. You can change the time format depending on if you want it in frame, standard, or the time code. Down here under the settings tab is where I can view those proxy versions that I had added. There's also an option to view some guides. If you're working on social media, you could see how something would show within a specific platform. I'm going to shut those guides off for now, though. You also can adjust the thumbnail of this specific asset or even download something as a still. Okay. We'll go through this comment section together, but it's a little bit more dynamic. You do have the ability to comment on somebody else's comment. You could react to them as well. I'll showcase that here in just a bit. I'm going to click play though, and let's leave a couple of comments together. I really like this lens flare that we have going on. So I'm going to leave a comment just saying that I really like that specific feature. I don't know if you saw, but when I started typing, our asset auto paused. I'm going to say, I like this lens flare. Let's use it in the final, is what I'm going to say. I know that I mentioned that I can do an @mentioned, and let's say that my colleague Luke is going to be doing the final review of this. I can @mention Luke so that way he will receive a notification that I'm @mentioning him. I'm going to go ahead and hit send. By clicking on this comment that I just left, it's going to take me directly to this location on the timeline, which will sync with both my name and my photo, what I mentioned earlier about that profile section. So that way you can determine exactly which users are leaving what types of comments. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning here, because this section before the lens flare, maybe we want to cut that out. This could be a great use case for our range-based comment. So I could leave a comment here. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. I'm just going to click I and then O, and I'm going to leave a comment in this specific range-based time period. And I'm going to say, can we cut this portion out? You could see here that this line with the pink, it's indicating this specific bracketed period of time that I am requesting this comment for. Okay. Moving on. It does feel a little washed out here on the left. I don't know what you all think, but let's go ahead and leave a hashtag here. Maybe to our colorist, and we can just say, can we eliminate some of the washed out color? All right, and I actually want to leave an annotation indicating exactly where I spoke about. So I went down here to the bottom. I'll show you this portion here for drawing an annotation that looks like a paintbrush. I can select an arrow, a line, a box. I can also draw freehand. I can select a couple of different colors here, pink, yellow, green, or orange. Let's do green so it shows up a little bit more. And let's draw an arrow. So I'm actually going to draw to this portion right here is what I'm indicating. And I'm going to go ahead and enter. And you can see that this annotation is going to be revealed when I click on that specific comment. Okay. There's no audio here, but let's say that we were working on a different voiceover that we wanted our actress to be leveraging here. I can add an attachment to a comment. So I can use the attach files section. I'm just going to snag a PDF that lives on my desktop called script for commercial. I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to add some text here just saying that I'm adding a script. For our next edit is what I'm going to say. Let's say there's a specific user that I want to review this, maybe my colleague Jacob. They will then receive a notification. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that comment there as well. The last type of comment that I want to showcase is this anchored comment. So this option down here that I skipped over right next to the settings is where you could drop a pin to a specific location. Seen this especially leveraged in PDFs or JPEGs, but you can also attach an annotation or a file to an anchored comment. I'm going to go ahead and leave a new comment here. And say, can we edit out this post? And let's leave this one as an internal comment. You have the option to select if I want a public comment or an internal comment. If it's public, anybody that you share it with can read it. If it's internal, only members that have access can read it. So if you're working with freelancers or again, maybe just something a little bit more private, you certainly can leverage this internal only commenting piece. All right. We left a couple of different comment types, like I mentioned, single comment, range-based, app mention, hashtag, anchored comments, or file types that could be uploaded. Under this comment section, I now can sort it so I can view internal only or public. I also have the ability under these comments to mark something as complete. So let's say that an editor goes through, they can mark this as complete, and then I can actually filter out based on either the comment type or if something is already completed. So I can filter that option out for everything that had been done, meaning that this comment section can act like a checklist for your team. Really effective way to leave these comments together. And let's say my colleague Jacob actually reviews this script and gives it their approval and wants to respond back. Jacob could respond back directly to my comment and say, this looks great. Let's record tomorrow. And could mark something as complete or simply just add an emoji indicating that they agree. I also can search for comments. I know that I added a hashtag to the colorist option. You can add any hashtag you would like that would sync up with this comments portion directly, enabling you to have any internal vernacular, maybe some legal language that you need to leverage to search for comments at a later date. I can copy and paste these comments onto different assets. I also can print them, which is a common way to create an audit trail. You can view a thumbnail with all of the comments associated. Great way to be able to determine everything that had occurred within your account. This field section pertains to metadata fields. There are 32 out of the box metadata fields. Some might already be filled out, like end time, file size, the file type, the source file name, but you can adjust metadata tagging here underneath this field section on the right-hand side. Okay. Any questions about commenting or annotating, please let me know. I do want to transition to talking a little bit about fields and metadata and then external sharing. Yeah, I don't know if you just saw, but this little notification bell just went off. My colleague Jacob actually just responded back and said, thank you, this is helpful. So our notifications working in real time. Metadata fields. I know that I mentioned that there's 32. You said, well, Ryan, why is there 36 listed here? That's actually because I have created 4 of my own custom metadata fields. You can create your own custom. Let's take a peek at a couple of these here that are already checked on. Release platform, that seems custom to me. Video status, also custom. Release date, that's custom. Final edit, assignee and rating actually come out of the box. You'll see those associated with your account. Bitrate, channels, color space, duration, date uploaded, just to name a few. I can create a new field. Say you have a specific approval process. You know that every single time that you approve something, you know that you need to go through, et cetera, et cetera. You can create a new field. Let's call this one legal approval. And I can select what type of field I want. Single, multiple, date, rating, a person. Let's create multiple. Let's just have this be a yes or a no option. I'm going to change it back to single, actually. Let's have yes be green and no be red. Save. So now you could see that that field that I created for legal approval that's clicked on will sync up here with every asset associated with this project with the option then for me to select, was this approved, yes or no? Looks like we got a question from Rob. What about other cloud storage? Can we also transfer files located on Google Drive? What is the transfer app? Right now, there isn't a direct integration between Google Drive. The only direct integration we have, Rob, is depending on your account type. Our enterprise folks can leverage something called Storage Connect, which is a built out connection between the AWS S3 US East region storage bucket and Frame. Everything else would need to be manually uploaded. But the transfer app, you can set a watch folder so you can have specific assets from your desktop, et cetera, automatically get uploaded. Just a secondary way to upload content. I would recommend leveraging the transfer app for uploads or downloads for large quantities of actions or large quantities of storage being uploaded. Hopefully that got to your question. All right. So you can see here, legal approval is yes. We know that there's maybe a logo or something associated with this content. Let's just add yes, yes, and yes here. But then what I can do now with these metadata fields that I've added, I can search for them. I can also sort based off of those metadata fields. But now I can leverage these collections, which, if I mentioned earlier, kind of act like a smart folder. So let's create a new one. Something that's pretty cool about these collections is I can share them out. So I can customize exactly what I want this to look like. I can determine, are these approved by legal? You can see that I'm adding a little bit of customization here. I'm going to add a briefcase. And let's add a professional header here as well. I like this one. Let's go ahead and apply. And we can then adjust how we want our users to actually view our content. So you can see I just added a little header, a description, a little custom branding here. This source folder option is where I can determine where do I want to pull assets from that match those metadata fields. Is it my entire account or just a specific folder? Let's go ahead and grab from our entire account. Similar to earlier, we can determine what we want the appearance to look like if we want it in list or thumbnail view. Card size ranging from small to large, our aspect ratio, depending on how it was filmed or maybe where we want to deploy it. I then can add in these filtered fields. So let's use the same legal approval example. I can put in legal approval is yes. And what this collection is doing is it is pulling all assets filtered based on these metadata fields where the legal approval is yes. But I can also take this a step deeper. I can add multiple metadata fields to match. So let's say we also want to look at our rating. Let's pull all assets that have legal approval marked as yes, and the rating is 5 stars. So let's go back over here into our assets. You can see here, these all have 5 stars and legal approval has been added. Let's go ahead and add yes for legal approval. Let's make this one 4 stars, though. We didn't like that one as much. You can see here, these assets are going to automatically upload then into my collection because it matches that filter. This option here for final assets, as a secondary example, you can see that the filter is final edit is yes. However, it is grouped based on release platform. So I'm also using a grouping of metadata fields, which is in this example, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and it's actually grouping them based on the release platform name, and the final edit is checked yes. So would be an example of a more formal or complete review process that we want to actually see the names of where we're going to deploy them to. You can also make a collection private, so only you can see and edit it. So let's say that you had a specific collection that you wanted to match your own name or your own approval process, you certainly can complete that. Questions about metadata and collections? If there's any specific use cases you wanted me to go through as well, please let me know. Give me a shout. In the meantime, let's transition to talking a little bit about sharing. Down here in the very bottom on the left is where you could see a list of all of the shares. So if I go to all shares here, you could see a list of all of the links that I've generated to share out externally with any of our stakeholders to be able to view this content. By clicking on each individual share, I can see what's in it. I also can delete a share. So you can see here that under this ProRes, I can delete this option. We can get rid of it. But let's say we want to generate a new share. How do I do that? There's a couple of different ways. Depends on where you want to pull these assets from. Maybe we want to share out this legal approval collection with our legal team. They don't actually have frame licenses. I can click on these three dots here and I can share. Then it's going to show up here underneath my shares option. You can see your legal approval. That's the name of my collection. And then on the right-hand side, I have the ability to edit this link. Do I want this to be a public link or a secure share link? Those defaults that we went through earlier would apply directly here. So under the account settings, if you made it default where every time you share a link, it has to be secure shared, then it's going to show that way. You can invite users in here to add them into that share, or you can just copy and paste it. I know that I use the word users, but you can also invite in folks that are external to the org here and won't actually occupy a license. Okay. Layout. Do you want to view this content in list format, in grid format, or in reel format? You could see that all of these customizations that I've added, this bright green option is going to sync up here with my external share. That was a custom branding option that I added here in my settings earlier. There's also a passphrase that has been custom generated. I could add my own. Maybe we could add 123 as our passphrase. We could open it up in just a bit. Just want to make sure we got it 123. All right. And we can add an expiration date. Let's have it be Friday at 5 p.m. Okay. Underneath this tab, I also have the ability to customize some of the permissions of what these users can do, or the reviewers rather. Do I want them to comment, download, or show all versions? That pertains to that version stacking feature that we showed earlier. And fields. I do have the option to allow these secure sharers or reviewers to adjust one secure field. So do I want this metadata field to be edited? Yes or no. In this example, it's feature field. We could even do legal approval if we want, yes or no. Okay. Let's go ahead and copy this link. I do want to show you what it would look like then for anybody who's viewing it. Remember, we added this passphrase of 123. And this is exactly what this link is going to look like for any of those individual users. Okay. You can also see that I've added these comments here. That's going to show. Also looks like we have our watermark that has been applied. And of course, I can select these additional assets too. I did give my users the ability to view all of these comments, also leave their own comments. I also gave them the option to be able to download this asset if desired. Any questions about shares, please let me know. Looks like we got a question from Radio Icer. The version you have, does Adobe not work with Resolve? Yeah, that's correct, Radio Icer. We do not have a direct integration with DaVinci Resolve. However, you can copy and paste comments in there, but I would recommend reaching out to Blackmagic with additional questions. Cool. I know that we've covered a lot of ground. We have gone through all of the different account settings, user roles, workspaces, and projects. We chatted about uploading and managing your content, including organization and creating folders. We spoke about commenting and annotating, metadata and collections, and external sharing. We're coming to the end of our session today, but there are a couple of resources I wanted to share with you. The first, you can contact our support team 24/7 by clicking on this chat bubble. These are actually live people that are chatting right now. They can answer any brief questions or anything a little bit more in depth as well. You also can access our knowledge base right here through the chat bubble. I'm also going to drop our knowledge base here in the chat, which answers a ton of additional questions, goes a little bit deeper into what we spoke about today. There's also the option here to submit a feature request. So if you're playing around and you say, wow, I really wish that this existed, drop us a note. Our team takes these seriously. We go through them every day. So please send some info or feedback our way. I know I used a couple of keyboard shortcuts, namely to create a range-based comment, but by clicking on the keyboard, you can also get an overview of all of the keyboard shortcuts, especially if you want to save a little bit of time. But I would like to say thank you on behalf of our entire team for joining me today. I hope that this was a helpful session getting started. Thank you for your questions today and your participation. If you're watching this as pre-recorded content, thank you as well. Rob asked, can you touch on Frame.io customer integration assistance? Do you mind just offering a little bit of clarity what you mean by integration assistance? We do have some native integrations specifically with Adobe tools, which are getting a little bit deeper over the course of the year, but anything specific? Any other questions, please let me know. Basic setup or transfers from an alternate program. I'm not sure I understand your question, Rob. Every account, once you log in, you will just set it up directly within Frame. There isn't necessarily like a basic setup through any other tools, such as Whipster. I'm not familiar. However, later in the year, we will be open API for enterprise customers. So there is a possibility that you could build out a custom solution come a couple of months from now once the API for V4 becomes available. So that certainly could exist. We do have a developer site. Let me pull it up and I can share that with you as well. All right. Rob, I just dropped the link to our dev site in the chat here. Feel free to give that a look. Hopefully that can help answer some questions. Like I said, it's not quite available yet, but it will be in the future. There might be some endpoints available with Whipster where you could build out your own custom workflow with some if-then type actions. TJ, the transfer app can automate upload, but is there a way to automate download/sync locally from a project? As it stands right now, there's not. But I would recommend submitting a product feature request. Our teams can certainly look into that. All right. It looks like there's a question as well from Cassandra. I have a multi-camera facility where I would like to get the output from the switch feed into Frame. What rack-mounted hardware do you recommend for that kind of integration? Ooh, this is a tricky one. I'm not sure that that exists. It might. Certainly depends on what your current workflow looks like. You might be able to leverage camera to cloud for that. Let me pull up just a camera to cloud doc to help get you started and point you in the right direction. One moment. All right, Cassandra, I'm dropping in the chat now an article around real-time uploads for Camera to Cloud, but down at the bottom, there is the option to select some additional support articles that talk a little bit more about Camera to Cloud. Give that a shot first to see. Yes, Camera to Cloud is it's all wireless. It all syncs up via Wi-Fi, either directly through the device itself or through some type of external recorder. Um, T Hunt. To follow up on Rob's earlier question, can you use Camera to Cloud to send footage to Frame and then push that to a Google Drive folder? There's not. We don't integrate with Google, mostly for security related reasons. However, there might be some custom APIs that you could build out. I'd recommend looking at that dev site that I sent earlier in the chat. Certainly could be a location where you could check it out and could potentially build out your own custom workflow. Right now, there isn't a way to automatically push that from Frame into a different location like a Google Drive. You could always follow up with our support team too. I know that this format's a little bit limited, so you could certainly hit up our support team, see if they have any additional info as well. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. I'll wait here for just a moment, see if there's anybody who's typing. You're welcome. Yeah, T. No worries. Um, Awesome. Well, thank you all again for joining today. Like I said, I hope this was helpful. I know that there were some nuanced questions here with camera to cloud or pushing to some external sources. Like I mentioned, reach out to our support team, see if they have any additional info to have a little bit more of a dialogue here. But again, thank you for joining me today. You can always watch this back on our YouTube page. I hope to see you back again soon. Thanks again for joining me and wherever you're tuning in from. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks for letting us be a part of your creative process. Take care.